baseball pennant race here for the first time in a generation. As a matter of fact, the last time we had a baseball pennant race, this guy was buzzing around here. It's also football season, and the Ravens are out in Indianapolis in the friendly heart of the Midwest this weekend. This guy covers all of the National Football League for the worldwide leader at ESPN. He's out in Minnesota in the 612 these days, but spent a little while chasing sports in these part of the world from 95 to 99. I've known him a couple of decades. I don't know that we've ever really done any radio together, but he was out seeing all things Flacco about a week and a half ago, and I've been trying to track him down, and the longer they make me wait, the better the conversation is. We welcome Kevin Seifert in from ESPN. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at SeifertESPN, as well as at the NFL Nation blog site at ESPN.com. Welcome back, old friend. How's life out there where the mosquitoes are as big as a house and there's no humidity?
Well, you make it sound so much fun here in Minnesota. It is the unknown curse of living here. We go through the winter, and we all know how cold it is, and but not many people realize how difficult it is to get outside in the summer without 4 gallons of bug spray draped all over you.
Yeah, they love me, man. You know, I mean, Billick has warned me to stay out of. He says, "Hey, you want the keys to my my lake place? I'll give it to you, but you better bring a mosquito net. You won't like it." And I'm like,
yeah,
you're probably right.
Blood, man.
Yeah, I would not like that. Now, you have been traveling around doing an East Coast tour, and I know you cover the whole league for ESPN. And one of your first stops is Baltimore, and I think much like every other national writer, the question is, how's Flacco moving around? How's he looking? I got to be honest. I mean, maybe I'm shocked, maybe I'm not. I think of Joe as sort of super worldly. He's my favorite athlete ever to come through here and to play here and to win here. I kind of expected him to bounce back, but I didn't expect him to sort of do it the way he's done it, which is he looks like it never happened, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that's what amazed me. I mean, I was there for a day. I was standing there with Jameson Hensley, and at one point I asked him, I said, Jameson, when was his surgery again? I mean, and James said, early December 8th, whenever. And I mean, it is rare that you see a player even back on the field doing football activities, fully the way Joe Flacco is 8 months after having surgery to repair an ACL. And, I know modern medicine is great, and the ACL thing has become more routine than ever. And, I live in Minnesota where Adrian Peterson not only came back 9 months later or so from his ACL, but he ran for 2,000 yards in that ensuing season. So we've all been sort of sanitized to how serious the ACL still really is. And all you need to do is look at Jordy Nelson in Green Bay, who was basically a year out now from his ACL tear as a receiver, and he still hasn't gotten back on the field. It's supposed to happen pretty soon, and the Packers are notoriously cautious when it comes to injuries. But this is, for a guy, especially a quarterback, a veteran guy who knows the offense, who knows what he's doing, who doesn't necessarily need every practice rep, for a guy to come back and take all those reps and to show really no outward body language or any of the other clues that you normally see when a guy is just working through soreness or anything like that, was really amazing. I know he hasn't played in the preseason early on in the preseason, but all indications for people coming in from the outside are that Joe Flacco is going to be just fine and 100% when the regular season starts. And when a guy tears his ACL, to be able to say that for the week 1 of the previous season is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, just keeping him upright's an important part of this. And the Ravens have so many other injuries. I know you were around camp, and he's a big question mark that's sort of has gone to a little bit less of a gray area. It's looking a little bit more clear, like he's going to be okay. There's a lot of situations here where Suggs getting back this week and trying to run around a little bit. Steve Smith, obviously Dennis Pitta, and then Perryman, and drafting guys. There was a little worry about Stanley last week as well, but this is a fascinating place for you national folks to be, because the Ravens really are box chocolates. You could see them ramping it up and going 12-4 if every part comes together, but you can't be a rational person and think that all of these old guys are going to come back and look like it's 2009 all over again. That just doesn't work that way.
Well, and sometimes you can get lulled to sleep by the Ray Lewises of the world, who played at such a high level and so consistently getting on the field as they got older and as he got older, and didn't really show the effects of aging the way most players do. And the Ravens have consistently fielded a team that had a lot of veterans and a few key draft choices contributing, but always has been a veteran-laden team, and that's been one of the secrets to their sustained success under Ozzie Newsome, is that they've never really been in that classic rebuilding mold. And so the expectation is that every year those guys will patch it up again one more time and get out there and produce a playoff team. Flacco, obviously they weren't a playoff team even with Flacco on the field last year, but if he is okay, that really lessens a lot of the concerns that I would have about them. My feeling is that going into every season, that you basically have 20 to 25 teams who are in that second-tier group of teams that can finish anywhere between 7-9 and 10-6 or so and be a playoff team, just based on how a couple things go. One or two key injuries, or one or two key, in the Ravens' case last year, bad calls, one or two play calls that go the wrong way. And that's really all that separates the vast majority of teams in the NFL. And I think the Ravens are right in there, where if enough of those handful of season-determining intangibles go their way, then they could be a playoff team. It's not as if, to me, they are facing an uphill battle. They're right there with the rest of the league in being good enough to challenge for that spot. If a few things go right for him.
He is Kevin Seifert, a longtime writer and NFL chronicler in Minnesota, and even here locally with the Washington Times. About a decade and a half ago, he's been at ESPN for 8 years now. You can follow his journey at Seifert ESPN. That's SEIFERT. Just like George, ESPN out on Twitter, as well as at the NFL Nation blog at ESPN as well. For the Ravens, and I guess the offseason, you mentioned these veteran guys, and I agree with you. And I've been spending a long time this week talking about Matt Burke as being a center, because we've been talking about Ryan Kelly in Indianapolis all week. But, the backside of the Reeds and the Lewises leaving and trying to replace them with the Mosleys and the Brandon Williams is the dirty little secret is a lot of Ravens' success came on the Sam Adams and the Saraguses and the Woodsons and the Sharps the first time around, and the Burks and the Boldens and, those guys the second time around. This Wallace, Weddle, and Watson, trio of W's that they've signed, I think there's tread on all those tires, and specifically Weddle could really be a difference maker. And I know Flacco came out earlier this week on Tuesday and said that, beware Mike Wallace, because he's really good. And I guess if Joe Flacco 9 years into this feels that way about it, I should too.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting, I saw Wallace a little bit closer than some other people here because he was in Minnesota last year. The one thing I'll say about him is he knows how to get open, and it's not just speed. I mean, there were so many plays last year in Minnesota where either Teddy Bridgewater didn't feel comfortable throwing it downfield, or he just missed him by a little bit, or a ball just kind of went off Mike Wallace's hands. So this is a guy who everyone talks about his speed, but he is not just a speed guy. I think he is pretty sophisticated in terms of his ability to run routes and get open and find holes in zones and all that sort of thing that you hope a veteran receiver can do. And so I'll be interested to see how he produces with a quarterback who has more of a downfield mentality like Joe Flacco. And in Minnesota, that's the big issue that everyone is worried about with Teddy Bridgewater. Is he just one of those cautious type guys who would rather take the 5 or 6 yard pass than try to gun it downfield and maybe take a little more of a risk but get a much better reward when it works? And that's where Mike Wallace really helps offenses. It doesn't, he can certainly take those 5 yard passes every now and then and turn it into something in the open field, but he's a guy that can make big plays downfield with his speed and his ability to get open. And it makes sense to me that the Ravens might be better equipped to capitalize on those skills with Flacco's, not only his arm, but his mentality. I mean, we all know he's more than happy to look downfield anytime it's available to him. So that's not going to be an issue. And so I think there's potential, not necessarily for a 90-catch, 1,500-yard season or anything like that, but I think there's potential for Mike Wallace to have a career renaissance in Baltimore, given the way Joe Flacco's mentality is, what his intent is, and what his history has been with the downfield pass. Weddle, I really like as well. I saw a lot of good things from him just in the one day I was in Baltimore, and I'm sure his best days are behind him. I mean, that's not an insult to say about any of those type of guys, but not only the way he can still produce, but the mentality that is contagious from his effort really can have an impact on the entire defense. Same way, and not to put him in the same sentence with Ray Lewis, but the same way that everyone played hard when Ray Lewis was playing next to him is the same type of intensity that Eric Weddle can bring to an entire defensive backfield.
Well, I think that's why they brought these guys in. You mentioned Wallace. I mean, it sounds to me like between Joe Flacco's endorsement and yours, everybody should be taking Wallace on their fantasy team, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the pass will be going around, but in terms of if you get lots of fantasy points for downfield throws, then certainly, because I'd imagine that's going to be available often for people.
Kevin Seifert was in Owings Mills for All Things Purple last week. He's been traveling around for ESPN. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Seifert ESPN. So you did the East Coast tour, and you used to be an East Coast guy, but you've been a Midwest guy for a long time now. You did Redskins, you did Eagles, you did Giants. I've talked to people from all of their camps here over the last couple of weeks. Boy, that's a really muddled division, right? I mean, and I don't know that anybody believes anybody can win 11 games there, but I think that there's a reason to recommend some of those teams as not being 4-12 either.
No, I mean they're the one team that I could see. Well, two teams. I could see the Cowboys having another season like that if something happens to Romo. But assuming Romo's healthy, they're not a 4-12 team. The Eagles are a team that I'm not totally sure what they can be yet. That would be the one team that I would be worried about, maybe headed towards a I don't know if it's 4-12, but a significantly losing season. You have the quarterback thing hanging over. At some point Carson Wentz is hurt now, but at some point he's going to get on the field, and the Philadelphia fans, not that the Eagles run their organization based on what the Philadelphia fans want, but there's going to be quite a unless the Eagles really get off to a hot start, there's going to be quite a drumbeat for Carson Wentz to get on the field and for Sam Bradford's time to be done in Philadelphia. So this is really, at the very least, a transition year for them. And in watching their offense, whether Sam Bradford's out there or anyone, I'm not sure how many points they're going to score. I mean, you look at the trade they made to get a receiver from Tennessee. That's an interesting move and an indication of what a lot of people can see from the outside, that this is not a very deep receiving team, and if you don't have depth at receiver and you don't have playmaking at receiver, it's hard to score a lot of points, and so you wonder where their points are going to come from. So that would be the one team I'd be worried about. I'm a little surprised to see the national. I said the Cowboys won't be a 4-12 or 5-11 team, but I'm a little surprised to see the national assumption that they're the division favorites, assuming Romo stays healthy. I think they have a good team, but I really liked what I saw from the Redskins, to be honest with you. I think their offense is stacked. I think they're going to score some points. I think they're fine without Alfred Morris in their backfield, and their defense they made with Josh Norman and a couple other guys there. I think they have the makings of a pretty at least an improved defense from what they had last year. They might still have to win some shootouts, but to me, that's the most dynamic offense in the league, in that division, top to bottom, and the Cowboys being pretty close. But I think the Redskins, if I had to pick a favorite in that division, I'd probably pick the Redskins, and I'd say it's going to be a pretty good battle between them and the Cowboys throughout the season.
Meanwhile, you spend most of your time out there in Minnesota chasing around the Chicagos and the Green Bays and the Minnesotas and the Detroits. Minnesota's got a whole thing going on out there, not just with the renaissance for football and winning and moving outdoor back into the stadium. There's real hope that they could be a 12 or 13 win team, right? I mean, they really made great strides last year, despite whatever limitations you believe Teddy Bridgewater may have in the offensive game.
Yeah, they certainly had a schedule. I mean, the second year under Mike Zimmer, and they win the division over the Packers with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback. It wasn't like Rodgers got hurt for half the year and wasn't on the field. I mean, they beat the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers to win in the final week of the season to win the division on the road, and then obviously would have advanced in the playoffs had their kicker made a 26 or 27-yard field goal. So they're ahead of schedule in terms of what you would hope for with the second-year coach. Zimmer's a pretty good coach, and not just. I mean, he's a great defensive mind and continues to call the defensive plays. And they've built themselves probably a top 10 defense under his watch. But Offensively, that's been the issue that they need to address, and they need to decide what they want Teddy Bridgewater to be. He can't be as cautious as he was last year, and just relying on Adrian Peterson and holding the ball and eventually dumping it off or throwing it away. He needs to make more plays downfield, but you don't want to push a guy into being someone he's not. And so the worst thing they could do is push him to be more aggressive, and he starts throwing wildly downfield and having turnovers and the whole thing. They're worse off than if he was just dumping the ball off 5 yards. So they have to walk that balance, but that's really the last step for them to be a true Super Bowl contender, and it could happen as early as this year. They're already an 11-win team last year, only a couple more, and they have they're challenging for home field advantage, and really that's the final key. Can they get Teddy Bridgewater to balance that line between being limiting mistakes but also taking appropriate risks? Because if you're just back there waiting for guys to get wide open in this league, it's not going to happen too often. You have to throw it when guys are covered and trust your receiver, either throw them open or trust the receivers to come down with the ball more often than not. And so that's really their last step. But they've made a lot of progress so far, and there's a lot of excitement here that they continue to put some space between them and the Packers, and in this new stadium where Bridgewater might actually be more successful indoors because his arm is maybe not the strongest in the league. I think most people would agree. They really think that they have a chance to challenge for the Super Bowl this year.
Well, I tell you, you've done all these camps and you're getting around. One of the more interesting things for me, beyond the Garoppolo thing that's obvious to everyone on the field, is just the Rams' reemergence. And I was sitting over at Ruth's Chris with my wife having dinner on Saturday night, and and up on the TV pops all of the LA Coliseum, and my jaw dropped a little bit, and I'm like, well, I've been hearing about it, writing about it, reading about it, talking about it. I've had Sam Farmer on. I had everybody on from San Diego and Oakland and St. Louis. We take special interest in that sort of thing around here, given our history with the league and losing and picking up teams. But, it's real. It's there. It's coming, right? the NFL has its wish. There's a cash cow sitting out there in L.A., but it's probably not a very good football team either.
No, I was actually talking to somebody else. There was, as you said, there's 90,000 people at the game or whatever, and there's all this excitement. And then, the kickoff comes and they announce, for your Los Angeles Rams starting quarterback Case Keenum, and it just kind of lets the air out of the balloon a little bit when you realize that this is the team that got dropped in Los Angeles, a team that hasn't made the playoffs or even had a winning record under their current coaching regime. Jeff Fisher and one that they traded up to draft Jared Goff as the quarterback, but obviously he's not starting yet. Had a little bit of an injury in that first game, and so they're trotting out Case Keenum as their starter. And it was just a reminder, I think, that while there is a team out in LA, it's not one of the which by definition makes them one of the more high-profile teams in the league. Their on-field product at this point can't possibly be considered a high-profile team, and so that's an interesting juxtaposition. They're going to be in transition here for a few years, and I would imagine that it'll be an organizational goal, much like it was for Minnesota and some other teams, to be a deep playoff contender when they move into their new stadium. I believe it's 2019 is when they move in.
Hey, it's always great having you on, man, and great catching up with you. I know you'll be out traveling around to various places and taking a little downtime here before the season begins. We'll be following your journey out at Seaford ESPN. Kev, always great to catch up with you, bud.
Okay, Nestor, thank you for having me.
You got it. Kevin Seifert, longtime NFL writer, based out in Minnesota, but covering the National Football League throughout ESPN at ESPN.com and their NFL Nation. And, of course, you can find him on Twitter, Seifert, Seifert, ESPN, if you're familiar with George and the legend of the 49ers and the Panthers. Same spelling, same pronunciation. You can find me out on the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Big thanks to our friends at buyatoyota.com for that. Our morning newspaper, it's your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning, and that's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And our breaking news always on the WNST Tech Service. Trades, movements, big news. You get it first. Everyone knows it's the best. 10 years in town and still undefeated. We are the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Of course, Dennis will be here 3 to 5 on Thursday, driving you home. You can email me anytime, any place, nasty@WNST.net. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook Live, and our WNSTV YouTube channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Baltimore and time around this three-team race, as well as the Ravens taking on the Colts this weekend out in the friendly heart of the Midwest. I'm going westward here. He's a Chicago guy. He's out in La La Land of Los Angeles, where we hope to get at some point this fall for some basketball and some fun, maybe even a little baseball, who knows. Maybe it's Orioles and Dodgers in the World Series. I'm not sure. He is the Swollen Dome on Twitter and one of our defending champions here from Fox Sports Radio. We welcome in our dear friend Mike Harmon, back again from Los Angeles, California, where the Rams gave us all quite the show on Saturday night, didn't they, Harmon?
Well, when you get 90,000 people assembled and we can quibble over how many of those were Cowboy fans, how many of those were just looky-loos wanting to kick the tires and see what this, pro football thing is all about. It was a nice viewing experience, to see the stands that packed, to see some of the old L.A. Rams on hand, and the, omnipresent Eric Dickerson there to wave to the good people and everything. So it was fun to have it back. I think folks, as they watched that game unfold, particularly, right at the opening kickoff when Lucky Whitehead returned it. Nice opening for Sean McDonough for his Monday Night Football experience, right? Getting a couple of reps in the preseason. He gets to call an opening kickoff return for a touchdown, had a good one-liner with it. And I think everybody just immediately exhaled. They exhaled and realized, wow, it's going to be a long season. But football's back, people are excited, and the merch is starting to fly off the shelves.
Well, yeah, and I was out with Jen having a dinner over at Roost Chris Pier 5, one of our great sponsors and our supporters for everything we do for There Goes My Hero and our leukemia deal. And we look up, and we were talking about some L.A. plans that we're sort of putting together. And, I look up on the TV, and there it is, 3 hours of – it looked like a real football game. Like, with the sound down, you wouldn't realize that it's fake football, because usually fake football involves what it does here in Baltimore, which is, 40,000 empty seats on a bare minimum, like it does around the league. It was what you would want to see. It was the kind of enthusiasm we had here when we played the Philadelphia Eagles in 1996 in a meaningless preseason game, and when Brett Favre came in 2 weeks later in a meaningless preseason deluge when the Packers were in 96. We had 60,000 people in their seats at kickoff when the Ravens came to town, and that's part of the fun of all of this, right?
Well, that's just it, right? It's all, at least for LA right now, it's the experience. It's the newness, right? It's that car just off the lot, still has that nice, air freshener, whichever style you chose. It hasn't been tainted by the kids, the dog, or you spilling coffee.
Are you saying that Case Keenum smells good right now? Is that what you're telling me, Mike Harmon?
Well, I'm going to say Sean Mannion smells good right now after his 3-touchdown performance and leading them back to victory. They didn't cover the number, by the way. It was 4.5. They had ended up with a 4-point win.
What kind of a degenerate man gambles aimlessly on preseason NFL football?
Well, that's a good question, but we always make note of those things nonetheless. That's part of the gig. We know what makes the NFL and, most of these sports go around. It's
August, dude. Do something constructive. Bet on baseball.
Yeah, you'd like that, but no. People are already getting in their NFL fix as we go through the gambling world. But, you know what Todd Gurley is. You have a pretty good idea of what you have in Tavon Austin. I think there's some nervousness over how good the defense is, a couple of defections of veterans. Still, at least from a name perspective, you got some behemoths there in the front seven that should be able to get things done. But the rest of your offense is suspect. I don't know how good the offensive line is. Quarterback position, Jared Goff's the guy you should be starting, right? You're trying to have star power. You're trying to push the envelope, but now all of a sudden he's already got a shoulder injury. He's supposed to play this week in preseason game 2, but that already makes you a little bit nervous as you go, and you're totally devoid of talent, at least on the surface, at the wideout position. Tight end Higbee that they drafted, there's a little excitement about him, but right now Jeff Fisher in the first run of Hard Knocks was talking about I'm not going 7-9 with a couple of expletives thrown in. At this point, people here are going, man, he'd be lucky to go 7-9.
Hey, I haven't watched Hard Knocks yet. Give me a little primer on that, Harmon. My wife and I love watching it. We watch it every year. We usually do sort of bulk watch it. We sort of like sometime in the next week or so find 2 or 3 hours and get all caught up.
Yeah, thus far, it was the opener of trying to just, hey, here they are, they're moving, and some witty anecdotes of, hey, this guy, had some issues getting into camp and getting ready. We saw a guy that was already kicked off. He's since signed with the Eagles, but a wide receiver who broke the golden rule of no girls up in the dorms. So he found his way out of town.
Yeah, I had another coach tell me a very humorous story about a Ravens camp where some fellas had broken the rule number 1A in the coach's book. Don't bring girls into the team hotel, please.
Yeah, it looked like a good opportunity for Jeff Fisher to play the hard guy, which is fine. So that was all fun and good. When you look at
kid's got street cred now, though, right?
Well, that's just it. It's a wide receiver named Dion Long, cut in late July, and we knew that. But now at Hard Knocks, you get the full story, and you get Jeff Fisher doing we've got simple rules. This is our world, and I made myself clear and everything. And then he went on the tirade to the team saying, I'm not blanking going 7-9 and whatever else, which just looked like he was trying to, be an extra in a Hollywood movie now that they've moved back here. But if nothing else, you're looking at.
I have a feeling they're going to go blank in 7-9. I mean, I just on the outside, that's what I see, and that might be good. 7-9 might be a move forward, right?
No, that's just it. As you look at it, like I said, it's all about Todd Gurley. So folks that are looking for someone to follow in this LA move, folks that are looking at fantasy football, they're going to run him and pass to him until he can't take it anymore. And I think that is the extent of their offense. It'll be curious to see whether Case Keenum is in fact the starter. The NFL, given the CBA now, I mean, I bring it up all the time. Folks are like, if they immediately have to play. Most of the time, I disagree with that now because you're not paying the guy the $50 million novelty check before he's played a snap.
Or the Sam Bradford fee is what we like to call it, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's cheap. I'm not saying it's easy money, but the fact of the matter is it's not prohibitive anymore to where you have to say, well, this guy's our future, and the future has to start now, especially if they're looking to give GM Les Snead and Fisher contract extensions to make sure that there's a little bit of stability as they get Goff's feet under him. Then there's no reason to start him, which means you get Case Keenum, and if they start out badly, that means those stands are going to start getting empty pretty fast. And what you have right now is a 3-year run where tickets are fairly cheap, right? No seat licenses and anything in that. So you've got a 3-year experiment to at least get things to where when that new palace opens up, people still feel like they want to put their money up. And the schedule is pretty backloaded. I mean, you lose one of your home games. The Giants' game is in London. And then down the stretch, you've got a ton of home games, 4 of your final 7 at home, including the final 2, or 3 of the last 4, I should say. So when you start looking at Atlanta, San Francisco, and Arizona coming to town, there might not be anybody left coming to watch those games. You might be able to get up front and personal with Todd Gurley by that point in the season.
Well, at least the weather will be good there in December. We don't have to worry about that. Another cold weather place. Mike Harmon joining us here. He's the Swollen Dome on Twitter as well as a Fox Sports Radio host out in Los Angeles, California. I'm trying to get through this pennant race, man. The preseason football I can take or leave. It's fake football.
Sure.
I am going to be spending this Saturday not in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck or Joe Flacco, but I'm going to be spending it on the north edge of your fair homeland with Edward Vedder up at Addison and Clark on Saturday and Monday. So that's my weekend. But the baseball pennant race, I mean, for Baltimore to jump into this thing, I've talked to a couple people from Toronto. You're seeing 45,000 people in the stands there. They're feeling it. Baltimore, we got a homestand here with the Red Sox and the Astros, and I'm not feeling it yet here, and it's certainly a 3-team race, and I don't think anybody really has a strong feeling about who's going to win this thing in the American League East.
Well, that's it. Every team has its flaws, and when we were at the All-Star break, what was the thing you heard? Well, it's the Rangers and the Orioles are the two teams most susceptible to being caught. Nobody thought the Dodgers' son, Clayton Kershaw, would be able to make a run at the Giants, but they could still be, all right, we got 7 weeks of baseball left, and when you're talking about a dead heat, it takes one injury, it takes one bad series for things to potentially separate. So I think you got a lot of wishing, wanting, waiting, and hoping, and the advent of a new football season, it's, the dog whistle, squirrel, as it were, in the cartoon, where now you're distracted because you got more than one thing.
But you're distracted in the places where your baseball team stinks. If your baseball team's engaged, I think Cleveland's going to stay. Well, I mean, Cleveland doesn't have a football team, but
no, that's it. Their football team doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I mean, Washington would be a great example of that because the Nationals look like they're not going to have a pennant race at all. They're just going to coast all of September. And, it'll be much more about whether the Redskins are 3-1 when the playoffs start in Washington. So I hear that. And in Chicago, no one cares about the Bears, right? It's all Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears, obviously, the diehards, because if you're a guy like me that grew up on the South Side, you don't really care about the Cubs. You're waiting to see how this horror story is written in the final hour.
By the way, on Sunday, when you're having breakfast in L.A., I'll be having elotes con chorizo y cerveza down on the 35th. So I will be with your socks in heart, spirit, and probably beverage on Sunday.
There you go, and I'll be in a radio studio talking about the greatness of the National Football League and starting to do fantasy football talk. But, yeah, I mean, you'll be hanging out with noted Cub fan Eddie Vedder and his crew, and I appreciate you.
Hey, arms raised in a V, right?
That's right. He wrote a song about the Cubs and victory, and he had a big moment with Ernie Banks on there with, handing over a childhood mitt and all stuff. Like there's a lot of history there. So it's all good story. I'm still a South Sider, and unless they're signing me a paycheck.
And last you checked,
we wait for the Cubs to blow up.
Last you checked, you won last, right?
Well,
last you checked, you had a parade.
I hate hanging on to things from 11 years ago, but sure.
Hey, dude, there are people in Pittsburgh hanging on to 75 that I deal with around here.
Well,
so,
I deal with folks that, are hanging on to the Raiders of the 70s. So, I mean, I know it's all over the place.
Well, but baseball is fun, and when you're in a pennant race, which we look, Mike, I don't want to be crass here, and I could sit here all day and make your head spin on the Angelos negativity, right? Because I've lived it.
Right.
But
sure.
but all that being said, we have not really had a pennant race here in my child's lifetime. Like 96 was a come from behind. No one believed in that team till they got there. It was the dawn of the wild card. 97, the Orioles ran away and hid. They were wire to wire and then blew up against the Indians. They haven't had a pennant race in almost 2 decades. And then in 12, there was no one really believed the Orioles were going to make the playoffs and win. And then in 14, they ran away and hit again. So this is the first time we're literally every game scoreboard watching for 7 weeks, and there's really no reason at all to believe that this isn't a 3-team race. Hell, the Yankees might win a little bit here and get some energy and somehow get involved in this thing. They're certainly not going away yet the way we thought they were going to go away after the sell-offs. This looks to be like everybody's going to be all in come September 15th or 20th. And there's still going to be a couple of games apart.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the great things as we're coming down the stretch, and that's the division that everybody should be paying attention to, because the Yankees, while out, seemingly, they're 5.5 games out of the lead. They've played better baseball with this ragtag collection of players, guys that we all thought were over the hill, and they got interesting only when it really got awkward with Alex Rodriguez, because they've been pretty boring all year, but there they are, sitting a couple of games ahead of 500 and still maybe helping to decide how this race comes down. But, it's, again, the shift of energies, right, as you're between the Olympics and whatever siphoned off there. You've got the advent of football, college football, tangentially in a lot of markets that change it up. But I think it's a fun race because you're learning a lot of new names during this process, and I think that's great for the game that you're seeing these new teams. You're seeing guys that have been dominant in relative anonymity. I mean, anybody that really follows baseball knows who Manny Machado is, but suddenly he's a top-notch guy on the highlight shows, and is in everybody's mentions, as you start talking about MVP consideration and the next, when we always talk next.
Yeah, you want to see Manny Machado hit 410 over the last month and, lead the Orioles to a 21-7 finish. Somebody's going to do that. It might be Betts. It might be Bradley. It might be Encarnacion. It might be Bautista. But Donaldson, somebody's got to step up right now. It might be Dylan Bundy, for crying out loud. That's what makes it interesting because Chris Davis hadn't hit his weight in 4 months.
Right.
But maybe he hits 375 the rest. Somebody's going to catch fire and somebody's going to be a hero here.
Well, and the fact that I got a guy from Northwestern and Jay Happ that might be the AL Cy Young Award winner.
Remember when we all hated that price for Happ thing back in the offseason? Remember that?
Yeah, there's just all these crazy things that baseball is a funny game. You watch it all the time. You say I've seen it all. Earlier this week when Bartolo Colon pitched, you had him actually walk for the first time in his life. That's a guy that's been playing professional baseball since you and I were knee high to a grasshopper, and he has his first walk at the plate. So it'll be a fun 7-week run. I hope it doesn't get lost as everybody heads over to the gridiron because again there's new heroes to emerge. We know some of the big names, but others starting to rise up and get their just due. And in that division, get the popcorn ready. It's going to be fun. So,
Harmon, now that my wife is doing better, we've started to go out and shake a leg, get some rock and roll going here. So, the last couple of weeks, we've seen some great shows, man. We saw Styx the other night in Lancaster. We saw Def Leppard and REO, but Tesla didn't make it, which really sucked for me because I love Tesla.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it sucked. But, it was still a great show. We've seen Huey Lewis. I'm going to see Springsteen a couple times in the next couple of weeks, so I'm into that. Henley in a couple of weeks, so I'm into that. It's been a good summer for rock and roll. I know you've been out a little bit, right?
Yeah, we've gotten out a little bit, and this Friday I'll, take things full circle to, when I was a really young man, when the Guns N' Roses train was white hot.
Where are they playing? Dodger Stadium? Where are they playing?
They're at Dodger Stadium, yeah. So
that's filthy.
2 days.
Damn, should I come out there on Friday to see that and then sneak into Chicago Saturday?
I tell you what, if you make it, you go buy yourself a pit ticket, meet me and my brother, and the three of us will just take
Dude, everybody has loved the Guns show, man. It's been I missed that show, and it's been all the rage all summer long. Nobody has disliked that.
Yeah, you got the final 3 shows, so 2 in Los Angeles, 1 in San Diego, and that'll end the North American part of the tour.
You going all 3?
No, I'm only getting to one of them. I got to work the other 2 days. I did take a vacation this summer when I went to Sweden and everything, so I can't afford to just disappear for multiple days.
How was Stockholm, my man? I love me some Stockholm. It's one of my favorite places.
Stockholm was fantastic.
Isn't that a great place?
Stockholm's always fun. Yeah, we've been back a couple of times. Wife's family. Originally from Sweden, so we go back and visit the aunts and uncles and all the cousins and do some running around. They had the ABBA Museum.
Nice.
So my Eleanor, who she and I got up on a stage and did a little Dancing Queen. You had the ability to sing a couple other songs in the recording booths, set up like they used to run them. So we did that. You had one of the relatives had a little boat.
I would have sung Fernando. That's just me, though. I would have done that,
Fernando, unfortunately, on one of the applications was not an option because that was certainly where I was
There's something in the air tonight.
There you go. The stars were bright.
Fernando.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Especially when you can start.
I'll do the name of the game next time we're on.
Way up there too.
Absolutely, I love Fernando.
No, that's beautiful stuff. But yeah, so if you do end up venturing that way, if you're ever in Stockholm, I've got a relative that likes giving tours.
I still have a crush on the blonde. I don't know what to tell you, man. I love me some ABBA. I still haven't seen Mamma Mia yet, but I'll get dragged there before it's all over with. We all do.
Oh, you got to see that. No, that's not getting dragged here. That's a party. People are up in the aisles dancing, singing along. It's Mamma Mia. The stage show is really different.
Yeah.
And they just opened a whole new thing in Stockholm near one of the amusement parks, which was pretty cool because when I was there, they were promoting concerts for Europe and Lionel Richie. So they had these posters all over the place. I've tried to procure them because I thought they'd be cool on my wall, and they're like, no, all those were destroyed after the night of the concert. I'm like, how dare you? I'd pay good money to have those sent to the U.S. because the picture of Lionel Richie was great. He was being advertised on all sorts of cabs and whatever. But what they did in this place right by the amusement park is they turned it into, I don't know if you've seen the movie Mamma Mia, but it ends with a giant wedding scene where, they're having fun and it's like a wedding reception. And now they have an extension off the stage show of, all right, now we're going to do it like the the after party.
Who would have
Except
ever
you're
thought
part
that
of the after
ABBA
party.
would be something we were discussing 40 years later, right?
500 million albums sold worldwide.
It's the name of the game. That's all I can tell you, man. Hey,
Look at dude dropping more ABBA song time.
I grew up. I mean, knowing me and knowing you. Come on, man. Come on, man. I grew up in the 70s, bro. I mean, there's a little ABBA in all of us. That's all I can say. Well, look, I hope there's
you got to get to that museum.
All right, I'm in.
Costumes and everything.
I'm going to Europe in 2 weeks, but I'm not going to Stockholm. I have promised my wife I would take her to Stockholm. We're going to the ABBA Museum. That's it. Check it. It's on the bucket list. Right next to the Taj Mahal, but right somewhere near the Maldives.
There you go, somewhere in between there. And the last note on the Guns N' Roses tour, I get the added bonus of the Cult showing up as the opener.
You bastard. I love them. They're great.
Well, it'll be interesting to see that live after all these years because I haven't seen them in a good 20. So it could be interesting.
You might need a towel before Guns N' Roses even takes the stage. You need a towel off out there. Cult's going to rock you out there. Get there early, I'm telling you.
Oh, it's going to be great. Doors open at 5. We're down in the pit right by the stage. I'm hoping to recreate the occasion of Duff McKagan, who flipped me off 23 years ago or 24 years ago now. We'll see if we can get that recreate that scene.
Take me down to Paradise City, Bobby.
There you have it, brother.
Good having you on. Always a pleasure. Keep the faith out there. We'll check in again before the pennant race is over.
Good chatting, brother. Safe travels. You and your wife. Good to hear that she's up and able to be in part of this tomfoolery.
Yeah, well, and it has been such. I mean, we're mixing more things in. Bonnie Raitt's coming down the pipe next week. We got ZZ Top. We got things happening around. We got rock and roll to get to. Man.
Rock and roll, baby.
We got shows we got to get to right in the nick of time. Absolutely. He is Mike Harmon, the Swollen Dome, on Twitter as well as at Fox Sports Radio. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and anywhere you are. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. And W in the friendly heart of the Midwest. Luke Jones on the backfields. I'll be joining him on Thursday as well out at Owings Mills for all things preparation and Joe Flacco and who's in and who's out. Meanwhile, the Orioles will be hosting the Houston Astros, and I got to admit, when the season began, I thought the Astros were a playoff team. Now a lot of people questioning that, and they'll have a chance to prove their mettle this weekend here at Camden Yards with 4 games, and we're still getting used to the Astros being in the American League. So is this guy. He covers all things sports down at Houston, including that little football team down there with Brock Osweiler. He is the sports director at KPRC in Houston, and click to Houston. He is Randy McAvoy, one of our defending champions. We welcome him back in. Hey, I thought we'd have an Astros pennant race here in Houston. It doesn't look like it's going to go that way, huh, Randy?
Well, I think a lot of people thought the playoff tickets would be printed. They just kind of wrote it in as a given, considering what they had coming back. But it just has not panned out that way. That month of April really has held them back. I mean, they've had their great run so far in the summer that have got them back in the race. But April really hurt this team, and now you got an offense that's up and down, and they've got problems. They got some work to do, and they're by no means out of it, but it may be tough to catch the Rangers, but they're definitely in the thick of the wild card race.
Were you happy with the trade deadline where they sat? Because, it looks now like they're more outside than inside, but still in it. They could have done more things. They had more resources to do things. But there's also the part where, hey, we're a young team. We're not going to get rid of prospects to try to go and run and win right now. We want to win over the next 5 or 7 years. That getting rid of and look, the Red Sox gave away their number 1 prospect to get Pomerantz, right? So there's a lot of things that they could have done that they passed on doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of they were hoping they'd add an arm to the rotation. I really thought they needed an arm because I was convinced, okay, the bats, maybe they'll come alive. And they have, some of these guys are starting to heat up a little bit. Carlos Correa swinging the bat well, but I still think they're missing an arm in that rotation. But that said, I'm in the camp with the Astros. I mean, unless it was the absolute right deal, everybody wanted Musgrove, the pitcher. They wanted Alex Bregman, the rookie minor league guy that they drafted a year ago that shot through the minor league. They just called him up. Everybody they talked to wanted Musgrove and Bregman. Not or, but and. And Jeff Luna, the general manager, was not going to do that. And I'm kind of in his corner. I mean, you're building something here. you can maybe make some minor tweaks. You feel like they've got the talent to get back in the race, but I don't want, they were so down for so many years, and now I don't think that would have sit well with the fans, to be honest with you, if they would have saw two top prospects go.
How's this gone with this rocky year here after so much promise last year? Because, you see Correa step up. He's gotten better. Springer's there. Altuve's there. It really has been about pitching, and I guess
Right.
you thought you had it in Dallas Keuchel, and there have been maybe some more signs of life, but you needed him to be front of the line in the way that the Red Sox have needed David Price to be there. No matter what you spend on these guys, there is a level of expectation that's built.
No, there is. Again, it goes down to, they're not afraid to spend the money. I think Jim Crane, the owner, has gotten to the point now where he will spend the money when necessary. I think next year is going to be a big year. I think they're hoping that they could feed off of last season and get enough to get in the postseason. They haven't ruled that out yet, but I would not be shocked if they start spending some money in this offseason. But I think they want to roll the dice, see what happens. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. And he's going to go with the side of, hey, these are the guys that got us there last year. Let's finish strong. Let's get the pitching back, and let's start hitting the ball a little bit and see if it'll be enough to catch the wild card.
Correa,
Or, be honest with you,
sure.
Rangers could collapse too, like they've had part of the season anyway.
Well, yeah, and they lost Chu as well. I'll tell you what, Altuve and Correa, as exciting as Scope and Machado are here, I'd be collecting their baseball cards if it were back in the day for me. I love watching Altuve play. You have a real reason, much like Bagwell and Biggio in the day, a real reason to put the TV on every night if you're an Astros fan and say, these guys, at some point when they win and when they get to a World Series, these are going to be the guys who are going to be part of it.
Yeah, for a long time. Altuve is one of the veterans on the team, yet he's young. He's still a young guy, and he's about to approach 1,000 hits in his career. He's doing it like in 800 games or something like that. This guy's unbelievable to watch, not only with the bat, but defensively, he's solid. He's a total package, and everybody knows about what Correa can do. It's a good tandem they're going to have for many years. It's exciting. Now they got to build around it a little bit. And some of these guys, honestly, will not be here long. You got Rasmus, you got Gaddis, some of these other guys. They're just filling in for a couple of years. They're going to keep building, and they got more prospects on the way. The pipeline is pretty good in this organization.
Well, we got the Astros coming into town all weekend long here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and we're on the line with Randy McIlvoy. He's the sports director, KPRC, down in Houston, where football's taking over down. It's still a football state down there in Texas, and I guess the Texans are an intriguing bunch this year, right? With Brock Osweiler having the target on his back, and we're playing the Colts this week, so I've talked to a lot of folks about the AFC South.
You know what? They made changes. I still think the jury's out, and just my personal take is Osweiler an improvement? Absolutely, from what they had there at the Texans with Brian Hoyer and the guys. I still think it's a small sample size, man. We're talking about, 6 or 7 starts in Denver, and then Peyton came back in and replaced him. I need to see more from Osweiler. I don't think, to me, he hasn't done enough in his career to come in and say he's absolutely going to tear it up. I'm not convinced of that yet. I need to see more of him on the field. I need a bigger sample size. He didn't look very good. I was with the team out in San Francisco over the weekend. First game, granted, preseason game. Yeah, he didn't look very good, but I'll know more in the next couple of weeks when we see him a little bit more, get more playing time, and as he continues to get a grasp of this offense. But I think Lamar Miller was a nice pickup. They needed, with losing Arian Foster, he was damaged goods anyway. But if Lamar Miller can stay healthy, this is a guy that's explosive. And he showed some spurts Sunday night in their opener that I liked. And receiver, you got DeAndre Hopkins. It's a big target. It's going to be for Osweiler. But you got to have one of these other guys step up to complement Hopkins, because if you don't have another receiver, which they didn't have last year, they just zeroed in on Hopkins, and he got his numbers. They're pretty much, the offense was pretty much contained. They only averaged like 20, 21 points a game, which is not very good across the league. So they need Will Fuller, the rookie, to step up, maybe Braxton Miller to step up as well.
And I tell you what, we got Baltimore here with Phelps and Ledecky being local. You got a nice little Houston Olympic story going on down there too, right?
Yes, we do. Simone Biles, the gymnast, is from right here in the Houston area, just north of Houston, a little area called Spring, and done many stories with her. About 3 or 4 years ago, I remember the first time I met her, and she was one of those rising stars and had Rio on her plan, and sure enough, she's just been rolling ever since. Amazing story. You got the swimmer Simone Manuel is from Houston as well. She's won a couple of medals. We've got a number of athletes that train here year round and are from here. It's been fun to watch. We got a big crew in Rio right now.
Yeah, I knew you had a local thing going on down there. Always great to have you on, Randy. We'll check in, and we'll be watching some Astros and Orioles. And hey, I'm looking forward to spending 10 days in your Fairburg in the late January, early February period. Houston got the Super Bowl this year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We'll try to bring you good weather. Should be a lot of fun, and I know the city's ready for a Super Bowl.
Let me tell you what, I got it all figured out, Randy. I'm going to blame John McClain if anything goes wrong.
Easy to blame on him. Huh?
Blame the general. That's what I'm going to do. Hey, great having you on, Randy. You got it. Randy McIlvoy. You can follow him out on Twitter at Randy McIlvoy. That's McIlvoy. And, of course, the longtime sports director in Houston at KPRC, and the Astros in town all weekend. We're going to have full coverage of the Astros and the Orioles, as well as the Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts on Saturday night. Luke Jones on the scene all week long. Our Twitter, you can always email me, nasty at WNST.net. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, as well as anything you miss in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from wherever you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.